Brian Palavai Run Far here with Corrine Malcolm after her 9th place finish at the Western States 100. Congratulations, Corrine.
Thanks.
How did it feel out there?
It was special, I guess. I don't know. It was I thought if I had a really good day and was really smart, I could be top 10. And it kind of came together towards the end of the day, which was really exciting.
Yeah. This is your first interview with Run Far. You write for us, which is awesome, but
Yeah.
it's your first interview, so I'd like to just know or tell everybody what your background is and in endurance sports and sports. How did you come to be a trail runner?
So I was a skier, a Nordic skier.
Okay.
And actually dropped out of college for a while to do biathlon, so I skied with a rifle. And when I was really overtrained and retiring from that, I took a year and a half off, but we would routinely do 4 and 6 hour long runs.
Yeah.
And they were in the mountains, and I was like, well, sky running seems like a natural fit. And so I actually did that for a year. And then my dad was like, I think you'd be better if you ran longer. And so I took him up on it. And in 2016, I did Gorge 100K with Chuck and Nut as a warm up for it, because I realized jumping into 100K probably wasn't super smart. But yes, it's only since 2016 have I been running ultras.
Yeah. But I assume you're probably high level Nordic and probably did that for a while.
Yeah, I raced collegiately and then for the national team for biathlon. So
yeah, and here you are trail running and have worked your way up to the 100-mile distance. What are you expecting going into the race this weekend?
So I ran Leadville 100 last August, which is really so it's not my first 100, but they're very different, right?
Yeah.
Altitude versus really high heat, and I live in a pretty temperate area in Bellingham, 65 is kind of warm.
Yeah, cool and sea level.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of not great prep for most of my racing, but I was worried about the heat, but I also knew that when conditions are really bad, that I generally do pretty well.
Yeah. Because
I try to race really smart, and I think that I'm tough, generally speaking. And so I tried that yesterday, and it was super conservative and spent a lot of time in river crossings, and I think that paid off.
How did that feel? Because you were riding with some of the Camelia and Caitlin, other runners, and they're not stopping.
Yeah, it's definitely a little you question if you're doing the right thing. I also changed my shoes a lot, in part because I know that if I can minimize some of that stuff going wrong, I felt so I played it really safe. I didn't take a lot of risks. Could I have gotten away with changing my shoes a time less? Probably. That's 5 minutes. Could I have? I was eating solid food really well, so whenever I changed shoes, I was actually eating solid food for my crew, and so we kind of took advantage of that. But we'd come to river crossings, and I would let Casey and Kate Elliott go, and Camilla was kind of part of that group for a long time, and I'd be the one getting off trail to get into Swinging Bridges, that creek there, or El Dorado, and it's just am I doing the right thing? But I think it was worth it in the end, because I think staying really cold actually helped me eat for so long. But yeah, it's scary when no one else is making those decisions.
But you have to run your own race, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I felt good for so long, and
now,
I think that helped.
Do you think? So you did all these shoe changes. You did a lot of creek dips.
Yeah.
Is that because do you think you're new to this distance and you want to play it safe and conservative? Do you think you'll engage in incrementalism and sort of pare down some of that as you go along?
I think I was talking to Jason Coop about it this morning, about how you kind of have to weigh the risk and the reward a little bit. And I think that yesterday I was very, very conservative as far as number of shoe changes and sock changes and creek crossings, and you get your feet wet in the creek crossing, so it's kind of if you're doing that, maybe you do want to change your shoes as opposed to missing those things. And I do think getting more comfortable with not only the distance but also the environment, those kind of things it's that's a learning process, and it takes a little bit of experience.
And do you think you're involved in the science side of running in extreme kind of circumstances, and I'm sure you've, aside from what experiments you've been a part of, read up a lot on this. You write about this for Run Far. Do you think that's a big advantage to kind of know that oh, this is really hot? There is a huge benefit to lowering my core temperature right now.
Totally. I'm super sciencey and super nerdy, and like you said, I just wrote a heat article for you guys, and I do think that that's kind of always on my mind, not only for prep pre-race, but for during the race. I know how inefficient we are as humans as far as keeping ourselves cool, and so even though we might not be working that hard, we're producing all this heat, and our body doesn't do a great job of dispersing that. And so, oh yeah, I was like, stay cold. We made these ice socks out of nylons and ice, and we were shoving like ice logs down my pack, and it kept all the ice in my pack instead of bouncing out. And like just put so much. I would leave aid stations like probably 10 pounds heavy, just like carrying ice with me, and like.
And that also, evaporative cooling, not just the coldness of the ice. So.
Totally. So I think it's helpful to be very much aware of that kind of stuff. Is it necessary? Probably not, but I think that there are tricks that you can put into play really easily when it comes to racing in this kind of extreme weather.
Do you feel like you had any real low points even with that avoidance?
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to some people about it. I was like, I would feel so great for like 10K, and then all of a sudden I'd be like, it's impossible. This is impossible. And then I would like feel really good again, and we'd be like cruising. And so I think there's some natural highs and lows, but I never got super down yesterday, and I think the aid stations really help with that. You come into aid and you see all these people, and I started to feel really desperate, like maybe a mile before the aid, just like wanting to be there. And then I'd like get a high from the aid stations, and I'd be like fine again. So like the 5 or 6 mile spread ones towards the end of the race were really hard. That's where I think I was at my lowest. My pacers did a really good job at that point of keeping me like focused, but
and you needed to stay focused because there's some racing in that. Back in the top 10.
Turns out that it was really close for a lot of the race, and I was outside the top 10 for a long time, kind of hanging out in that like 11th to 13th spot. And all of a sudden, it was like very much apparent when we left Forest Hill. My pacer and I left hauling, and maybe a little too fast. Actually, I got really crampy all of a sudden, and I was like, "Oh, okay, we need to back off so that I can like get this under control." And then it was fine once we backed off a little bit and like recalibrated. We caught like 2 women right away. We caught Nicole and Camilla initially, actually. And then Camilla came back with vengeance. But it was one of those things where it was like balancing out like wanting to hunt and also not wanting to hunt. I told my pacers, I was like, if a woman catches us and I'm moving like as fast as I think I possibly can right now without like knowing that how much further we have to go, like she deserves to pass me. Like I'm not going to like surge to try to counter it, which is like probably not great race tactics, but
it's not the last half mile of a 5K.
Exactly. Like it's a long way. Even though you run 80 miles, it turns out that like the last 20 miles is still pretty long
and tough. And it's kind of the hardest part, the 80-mile prelude to.
Yeah. And so like I knew that I was running the downhills really well, but I was kind of struggling on some of the gradual uphills at that point. And so I tried to use that to my advantage and like stay really smooth on that stuff. But yeah, it was like you had to be focused towards the end there. And Amy, my second pacer, Amy Leadham, was like ready to like go hunting.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm like almost ready.
She's building up a little competitive spark herself.
Oh yeah, no, she's like very like focused and driven and like very organized, and so she was a very good second pacer to have heading into the last 20 miles.
Did you have any favorite moment or like experience during the race?
No, I mean, coming through those big aid stations, like coming through Forest Hill is really special just because it's like such a like massive group of people that are just there like watching. They're like, they don't even have anyone in the race. Like they're just out like with their families. And that's really cool because I don't think a lot of our racing has that in the US. And then, no, I mean, there were moments in the last like 38 miles where we were just cruising, and that like feels kind of amazing.
You're like, how am I doing this?
And then when I picked up my first pacer, Nikki, and my boyfriend, Steven, with like a mile to go, Steven's not a runner at all. And he was like, okay, you guys can't drop me finishing. And I was like, he's like, this is my like, you know, my normal running pace, and you've already run 99 miles. And I was like, okay, come on. Like, let's go. So that was kind of fun to be like, okay, keep up.
But maybe you would have dropped him if some woman came up rolling on you at that point?
They jokingly were like, yeah, someone come up rolling. I've got to really like, I'll say I'm not competitive to my crew or that I don't want to. And my pacer will be like, yeah, she says she doesn't care. But when she heard someone behind us, she would like pick it up. So that would have totally happened at the end. Yeah. And like Steven would have been SOL at that point. But like Eliza wasn't that far. Like she kind of crested Ruby Point just in front of us. There's a long like uphill in the road at a Ruby Point, and I was like, no, it's not happening. So
where else might we see you? Where else are you racing this summer?
So I'm not racing in the US for the remainder of the summer. I'm going over to Europe for all of August.
Sounds nice.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Western States is not like I was off the wait list. Yeah. Like I had not been planning on this initially. Like I planned to go to Europe in the spring and then race a fall 100 in the US. So I'm flip-flopping it. I'm racing this now and a bunch of races going into this, and then I'm going to race Sierra Zanal as a warm-up race for TDS.
Those are two very different races. You can't really
two very different
concentrate
races.
on both.
No, and so TDS will be the focus. Yeah. And I got offered a spot for Sierra Zanal, and I've always wanted to run it, and it's 30K. I know it's super hilly, but I like that stuff.
But also really fast.
It'll be 3 hours, and I think for me, the timing between that and TDS is really nice. As far as, like, I hate long intervals. Like, I'm really bad at doing them. My athletes probably don't like hearing that, but I personally hate them. And so finding like a half marathon to a 30K race a couple weeks out is super nice.
Well, congratulations on your great run here, and good luck in Europe.
Thanks.